I'm Brother Early, and welcome to your town's sandwich shop and deli that's definitely not run by a cult. All of our food is made in-house and is very reasonably priced. Yes, that's because we don't pay our employees in what is essentially slave labor, but we pass those savings on to you. Our late hours, cheap prices, and the fact that we're located in a popular college town are purely just a coincidence and not at all for recruitment purposes. Feel free to leave a tip. It won't go to your waiter. It'll go to our great leader, Jim Bob, but we appreciate it nonetheless. If you can get over the fact that everyone working here looks like they're simultaneously dead inside and screaming for help, we make a pretty good sandwich at an affordable price.
Hello everyone, my name is Lauren and welcome to Unreligiously. Today we are going to be talking about something that's a little bit heavier than usual.
12 Tribes presents itself as a harmless church, living in communes, singing, dancing and selling food through their cafes. But former members say behind closed doors they tear families apart and treat children like slaves.
With its steep cliffs and majestic valleys, the Blue Mountains is a place where many come to be at one with nature. But these picturesque views hide some dark secrets.
Would you call them a cult?
I'd certainly call them a cult.
Normally we talk about fundamentalist Christianity, evangelicalism, but today we're going to be talking about a cult that is alive and well, active today in the United States, and it is called the 12 Tribes.
The 12 Tribes was founded in 1972 by Albert Eugene Spriggs in Chattanooga, Tennessee. All the members live together in a home, they dress modestly, and they share everything. No one makes their own money. And all that money is made through the Yellow Deli. Spriggs believed that women should be subservient to men and that their primary purpose is childbearing and rearing. He also believed people of different races should not get married. The 12 Tribes has branches in 13 different countries, plus Yellow Delis around the country operating 24/7. Spriggs believed that in order for Jesus' second coming to occur, they had to raise 144,000 perfect male virgins who will be killed around the year 2070. The most disturbing thing about this cult, however, is the allegations of child abuse. One ex-member said he was beaten bloody to the point of collapsing. Children will be beaten with a wooden rod for the smallest mistakes, like not singing loud enough during religious ceremonies. Physical discipline began for children as young as 6 months. An ex-member said, quote, they would get spanked 20 to 30 times a day.
Now, I personally am a connoisseur of cult literature, media, autobiographies, biographies, whatever, memoirs, you have it. But I had never heard of the 12 Tribes before. We're not going to be talking about them in a sensational or dramatic way, but we're going to be trying to look at the 12 Tribes from the lens of somebody that is trying to understand how these entire systems work within cults. People who want to understand why other people join them, how people get sucked into cults, and what it is actually like day-to-day living inside a cult group, a cult dynamic. If you've ever seen a Yellow Deli cafe, you know them. You've got long wooden booths, the outside looks rustic and homey, small townish, and from the outside, it all just kind of looks quaint. It almost looks like what life would look like if you were part of a really intentional community, or maybe something almost more European. Like it's a lot more homey and cozy, and I totally do understand why somebody would be drawn to one of these cafes. I have to say, what drew my attention when I was looking up cults was the cute yellow building.
This is a must visit when in the Blue Mountains.
There are 16 Yellow Deli locations across the United States and 13 more worldwide. All of the locations are suspiciously close to college campuses or things like that Appalachian Trail, where people are known to be maybe off doing their own thing, finding themselves. Not a lot of people might notice them no longer doing that thing, right? And it's kind of strange to me that they would choose these locations, especially the ones near college campuses, since they do not think college is a healthy environment for learning or social development. Why isn't it healthy? And why do you want to be right next to it?
I was really drawn to it, and I was like, what could be wrong with these people just running a small business? But let me tell you now, as someone that's done the research, there's so much wrong. What's happening behind the curtain at the Yellow Cafe, the Yellow Deli, is a lot more complicated, and it is honestly disturbing.
Inside the 12 tribes,
I ended up being brainwashed right from the beginning.
the religious group accused of heavy discipline,
I'll be getting spanked 20 to 30 times a day.
medical neglect,
I couldn't feel the beatings of the heart.
and tearing families apart.
Oh my gosh, I haven't cried like this about this in so long.
The 12 tribes began in the United States.
He wrote, "They lure you with nice things, nice food, nice music, and good moral ideas. Underneath it is a really crazy doctrine that says black people are cursed, and the end of the world is in 48 years, and that they're trying to raise up to 144,000 young virgin men to be sacrificed and killed by the governments of the world, the beast that's in the Bible. Their entire existence and everything they do is driven by the prophecy. They won't tell you directly, but this is absolutely true to them. They directly control your love life. In the community, you don't get a paycheck, you work super hard, and your individualism is stripped away. You have to give up everything, your bank account, your family, everything, which isn't hard if you already have nothing like I did. The young people who are going through hard times and are vulnerable, these are the people that they target. They are the people who join, they are tricked. I will say though, in my experience and in my opinion, if you spent years there and decide to leave for some reason, things will be very difficult and you will have nothing and you may lose friends in the commune." And then he also said, "They try to persuade people who are young and impressionable and have an open mind. Like I said before, it's all psychology. They pull from the sensitive parts of your life, make you feel bad about your bad decisions, and the only way to fix it is to join them." Just keep in mind, the founder, Eugene Springs, was a military psychologist and a high school counselor before he founded the cult. He just died in January of 2021. He knew how to work the people's fear and guilt.
So what is the 12 Tribes cult? The 12 Tribes is a religious movement that started in the US way back in the 1970s. So this was a long time ago. I guess not that long when it comes to religions, but to me, for a cult to make it that long, that says a little something. They definitely survived, gained traction. They believe that they're rebuilding the original 12 tribes of Israel in preparation for Jesus's return. It's really not a metaphor for them. They take it literally, and they literally believe that Jesus is going to return, and they are preparing for that. Now, most Christians do believe that Jesus is coming back. He is returning again. There will be a second coming. But we're not preparing for it in a tangible way in the way that these cults do. We see this a lot with cults where they're preparing for a specific, like, doomsday type event. Whereas Christians, we believe that Jesus is coming back, but we're not, and I shouldn't say we because I'm not a Christian anymore, but Christians wouldn't believe that we should be, like, preparing literally every single day. Maybe preparing in our spirit, but we're not literally living each day just thinking about Jesus's return. Most Christians believe, like, that the end times are near, but at the same time, everyone kind of knows that it probably won't happen in their lifetime. The 12 Tribes follows a really strict interpretation of both the Old and the New Testament. Surprise, surprise. And if you go ahead and blend in some Hebrew terminology and live communally, that's basically what you get with the 12 Tribes. You're not going to find people with personal bank accounts, personal property, or really any level of autonomy. Everything is shared, everything is structured, and everything is spiritualized. Everything, down to the last detail. If you're thinking this sounds like an offshoot of Christianity, and if you've watched my content, you probably have done a little bit of digging into fundamentalism with religion, with Christianity, you're not wrong. There are some parallels here, but it's also not quite that simple. It's more like they've built their own spiritual universe with their own languages, rules, identity, and worldview, and they're just plagiarizing parts of other religions.
Spyglasses are going. Let's go.
Really nice to meet you. Yeah, I hope you just enjoy yourself.
At first, everyone here seemed really happy, but something was off about this place. Like, really off.
Now that I have my bride, we are going to defeat all of the enemies.
Our enemies have had dominion over us for long enough. They are no more.
Those enemies. The enemies.
Wow, this restaurant has a lot of enemies. I'll just tell you guys, this restaurant hates you if you're gay, if you're black, if you're Jewish, if you're Abraham Lincoln because he freed the slaves. They hate black people. And even chocolate, for a pretty funny reason you'll find out later in the series. But they still have a lot more enemies. They hate you if you're Christian, any of these religions that you see right here. But another thing about this cult is they just abuse kids. They use kids as free slave labor. And if the kids don't follow orders perfectly, they take them into the back room and beat them. And if you watching this think that's messed up, then you are also their enemy and they want to take you down. But this restaurant isn't just gonna openly say that they hate all these groups of people, especially not to someone they just met today. But once they gain their trust later in the series, they teach me everything. It gets really bad.
There are specific criteria that needs to be met for something to be a cult, and this meets the BITE model, which is how you would assess for a cult. I'll go ahead and throw up a BITE model graphic on the screen so you can see what that criteria would be. But they're definitely a cult. Like a lot of high demand religious groups, there is a clear in-group and a clear out-group. You're either walking in line with them or you're of the world.
Let's play Could I Be in a Cult? We'll take a look at 4 criteria outlined by cult expert Stephen Hassan. This is important stuff because people who are in a cult don't know they're in a cult. Number 1, behavioral control. Does my organization dictate sexual behavior? Does it tell me how to eat or spend my money? And does it focus heavily on obedience? Number 2, informational control. Does my organization deliberately withhold information? Do they distort information? Do they keep the members busy? Do they tell me which kind of information is okay to read? Emotional control. Does my organization instill fear? Is there a focus on confession of sins, promoting feelings of guilt and shame? Thought control. Does my organization have a practice which changes people's names? Do they encourage the idea of good thoughts versus bad thoughts? And do they tell me to reject rational analysis using phrases like doubt your doubts?
You're either lukewarm and God is going to spit you out of his mouth, or you're on fire for God. You don't really get to have a lot of these in-betweens. So where did all of this come from? The group was started by a man named Albert, like elbow, but Bert, Albert Eugene Spriggs, who later took on the name Yoneq. I don't know if that's really how you pronounce it. I should probably look that up, but it's spelled Y-O-N-E-Q. Yoneq. I don't know. Yoneq? Whatever. We're going to call him Y. Or Eugene, actually. We're just going to call him Albert. That's his first name. Okay. Albert was not a lifelong preacher or a lifelong theologian, okay? He was a high school guidance counselor who got super duper into the Bible, like obsessed with the Bible. And he felt pretty disillusioned with mainstream Christianity, according to him. It really started just with informal Bible studies, then home churches, which if you ever got sucked into a home church, don't do it. And I'm not talking about a physical building. I'm talking about home churches that are literally in somebody's living room. Beware of the home churches. But eventually, from these informal Bible studies and home churches, it really just kind of evolved into a tight-knit group with clear rules and a definite hierarchy. The pattern is really common in a lot of movements like the 12 tribes. They really do often begin with somebody trying to reclaim some sort of sense of authenticity or purity with religion, saying that they offer something that their current religion or denomination doesn't offer them. They have the secret to joy and happiness or eternal life, or they're the only ones that know the truth or the answer. He eventually took on a sort of prophetic role within the group. He kind of saw himself as restoring something that had been lost since the time of the apostles, way back in biblical days. In his theology, that meant creating a society where basically everything from what you wear to how you parent your children, it had to align exactly with the way that God supposedly designed things, according to Albert, and how God designed them to work. Over time, obviously, his personal views became doctrine, and that spread to become group rules. The doctrine became control over the group. So what's it actually like to live in a 12 tribes community? From former members, journalists, and a few documentaries, the picture that really becomes clear is one of complete structure.
There really is a teaching about taking 3 to 4 squares of toilet paper, folding it to the size of 1 square, then wipe, fold, and repeat until you have this tiny poop-stained square that you flush. They literally are controlling all the way down to that.
That's nuts. I hope they got bidets or something.
Definitely
like
not.
installed.
I like structure, but this is like everything is planned out and personal autonomy is seen as dangerous, like not just to yourself, but to the integrity of the group.
There's a cafe run by a cult in the Blue Mountains just an hour from Sydney, and people are still going to it. Even though there's plenty of stuff written and made about it, plenty of stuff talking about how it's run by the 12 Tribes cult, which is this group that forces new members to give up their possessions and their name and encourages cutting off contact with the outside world. I was thinking about the Yellow Deli after visiting Katoomba a few weeks ago. It's this twee Lord of the Rings organic sandwiches and jam kind of place just on the corner of the main drag. And it has very good reviews. By all accounts, cult food, it's delicious. The way this place has managed to skate by on 5-star reviews for over a decade, it feels like despite the fact there's no shortage of information about its roots, people don't really seem to care. Sure, if you sort reviews by lowest rating, you'll see someone desperately pointing out the murky background of the cafe, but other than that, it's almost treated like an attraction. It's something fun and kooky, and it's got a page on the local tour bus company's routes with directions on how to visit. There's thousands of photos on Instagram, posts from people visiting, and even TikTok's full of videos of people being like, oh, you have to go to this cafe. Yes, it's run by a cult, but yum. So I don't know. Maybe it says something about us that we're happy to ignore as long as they make good sandwiches and everything looks pretty for photos. If I can post about it online, then who cares, right?
First of all, you live communally. That means that multiple families are living in one house, you're sharing everything. If you don't have your own bank account, you can't just take money and go get an apartment a few towns over if you want to leave the group. You're kind of stuck and set up to be permanently reliant on this group. You have to give up your job, your money, your privacy, everything that you have has to go to this group, you guys. This isn't a, 10% tithe, which we could get into that another day. This is everything. I'm talking everything that you have belongs to the group, including the parenting, like I said, of your children. There's a strong emphasis on those sort of roles. Men lead, women submit, and children need to obey their parents in the Lord, for this is right. Men are the head of the hierarchical structure. I don't know if I said that word right, but you know what I'm trying to say.
Former high school teacher and carnival showman Eugene Spriggs decided to quit teaching and start talking directly to God.
God-given right.
He created the 12 Tribes as a loose hybrid of Judaism and Christianity, and he preaches to his followers to live their lives by the First Testament.
The wicked are in authority, prohibiting good parents their God-given right to spank their children. Transgression increases.
Spriggs called himself Yonick and baptised his followers with Hebrew names. He's since expanded his communes, dancing and singing their way into 9 countries.
There's also a really big uniformity when it comes to the way that they clothe themselves or choose to dress. They dress in very modest clothing, which, do you. I can get behind that if that's what you want to do. I probably just I dress modestly just because it's more of my style. It's not a, conscious thought. So do whatever you want, but it's typically very modest, hand-sewn clothing, typically head coverings for women, and you'll notice in a lot of the pictures that I show you in videos, they're going to be in dresses. I don't know if they're only allowed to wear dresses, but that's what it would appear to be to me. And the men typically have long beards and long hair, and the children are homeschooled within the community. They're taught to distrust other people. Anyone is seen as an outsider who's not part of their 12 Tribes group.
About the treatment of children. Children are heavily disciplined, beaten with a rod from a very young age.
You got to start at 6 months, and it's in their child training manuals. It's written by them. It's in black and white.
What kind of disciplinary behaviour could you give a 6-month-old?
For wriggling, If a young baby's wriggling while you're changing their nappies, you need to spank them to keep them still, so they learn to respond.
When people hear of discipline, they often have a negative image in their mind.
This is a video currently available on the 12 Tribes website, an instruction manual on how to beat your child.
But I am going to discipline you for not being a faithful son.
It's called When the Spanking Stopped, All Hell Broke Loose.
And this includes their own extended families. So if grandma and grandpa aren't part of the 12 tribes, sorry, but you're not invited to Christmas.
They consider their bond through faith more important than their bloodlines.
I want to be with my mom, you know? And then I think her not wanting that as much has been something that's kind of stuck with me for a long time, yeah.
Tessa Klein, Matthew's daughter, spent her formative years as a child of the 12 tribes. She's the only one of Matt's 3 children who can really remember life inside. She was 6 when they left. Her mother decided to stay.
Did you kind of realise the gravity of the situation?
No way. Yeah, no. I really did think that I would see her again, and even like, I mean, I still do think that. Yeah, that didn't ever occur to me.
A handful of photos are the only memories of her that Tessa has left. Her mother, Taisha, refuses to see her.
I tried to arrange a meeting for her with me, but she didn't show up. I feel like it will probably be that way every time.
When we first came out, she'd cry herself to sleep, saying, you know, Daddy, Mummy must hate me. You know, why won't she see me?
As a dad, how do you even begin to explain your wife's actions to your children?
I'd tell them that she loves them very much, but she's being lied to, and that she feels the only way the children were going to get to heaven is if she stayed there, and because she loved them so much that if she saw them or spoke to them, she may end up leaving. And to her, that was like sending the children to hell.
Technology is also super limited and oftentimes banned altogether. Definitely no one has access to whatever they want. There's no internet, no TV, and no phones. Any sort of outside media, literature, books, it's seen as corrupting to the members of the group, probably because they'll get ideas and want to get the fuck out of there. It's completely an immersive environment. You're giving up everything and you are completely dedicating your mind, body, soul to the group. Here are where things get strange even by cult standards. The 12 Tribes teaches that in order for Jesus to return back for his believers, 144,000 male virgins need to be raised up by a specific time, which if you ask the tribe, that year would be 2027. So that's coming up pretty quickly. That number, 144,000, that's pulled directly out of the book of Revelation, which is notorious for being hard to understand and Christians not agreeing on the interpretation. Where most Christians interpret it symbolically, the 12 tribes take it super literally. They believe that these men will be the first fruits, a sort of SWAT team for Christ, totally pure, untainted, and just ready to reign with Jesus when he comes back, whenever that is, which is, again, 2027 apparently. The virginity part, that's not just encouraged, that's mandatory completely. That is a requirement. There can be no sexual contact, no lustful thoughts, and absolutely no relationships for the members of the group. They just have to be pure, obedient, and unmarried men.
We've always been raised to stay virgins our whole lives.
No, I missed it.
Can you say what you say? Even though I have a girlfriend, we haven't even had our first kiss yet, you know what I mean?
Now that I'm eligible for the group suicide, task 1 complete, now it's time to work. But this wasn't just your normal restaurant work. This is hard manual labor in the heat of the 100-degree sun.
This is not fun.
Yeah, I feel like a slave because this restaurant doesn't even pay their employees. They just tell them that if they decide to ever stop working, that you're going to hell. And all their employees actually seem to be brainwashed into believing this, especially the kids. Yeah, this restaurant's literally using children as free slave labor.
How old are you? 4? Then what were you doing at 4 years old?
Not there.
I'm definitely going to cover all of their brainwashing techniques and the child abuse that goes on later. But for now, my mission is to gain their trust. So back to work for me.
They put me to work today. Shoveling dirt away. I'm exhausted.
Yeah, it builds character.
I got a lot of character built today. Yeah.
The group raises the young boys with this as the ultimate goal. From childhood, they're told that their purpose is to become a part of this 144,000. And with being part of that 144,000 comes extreme pressure to remain pure, obedient, and really just separate yourself from anything that could be considered worldly. Girls in the group are told that they're supposed to support this mission to help raise up these future virgins by keeping them spiritually focused through their modesty and not engaging with them sexually. From the outside, it's hard not to see this as a form of identity erasure. These kids, especially the boys, are not growing up with normal adolescence and being able to explore who they are and accept their normal feelings. They're not even allowed to form independent opinions, relationships, or decide for themselves what kind of life that they would want in the future. They're just expected to be this vessel for Christ, or a tool for the end times, if you will. There's something so deeply dehumanizing about that, especially when you think about how young some of these boys really are when they're first introduced to it. Some of them are born into the cult. Before some of them even can have a concept of what a relationship, a marriage, sexuality, what all of that is, they're told that it doesn't belong to them, it's not for them, and that their life mission is to avoid those things. And when 2027 comes, whether or not the prophecy happens, which I feel confident that I can say it won't, what does this do to the psyche of someone who believed that was their entire identity and purpose and didn't need to think past 2027? That's going to be a huge mindfuck for a lot of these people. For many of us, it's really easy to look at this and see it as bizarre or extreme, but it's like the frog in a pot of boiling water where they're slowly exposed to these ideas, and by the time they believe that they're raising up, children to be part of the 144,000 male virgins, they're like, yeah, that's normal. It's a completely immersive environment, like I said, which in psychological terms means that it's going to be very effective at creating that group cohesion, and that's going to make it equally as effective at isolating you from the outside world. You're going to feel like you already have everything you need. Oftentimes in cults, you'll hear them use language like, well, that's your bio family. Now you have your chosen family, your spiritual family. And that's exactly the type of language that they use in the 12 tribes. Now, here's where it gets a little bit harder to talk about, but it's essential to the storyline and to understanding how this group actually functions. Discipline in the 12 tribes is not what most of us would think when we hear that word. Children are taught obedience through physical punishment, not as the last resort. This isn't like, you try other things, redirecting first, and then you spank. No, that is their first line of defense when it comes to training their child like a dog. Parents are expected to spank their kids with rods for disobedience, and that's not seen as abuse but as love, because you don't want to spare the rod and spoil the child, and you want to provide training to your children so that they can grow up and be holy and spend eternity in heaven with you. So it's not seen as abuse, it's seen as love. It's seen as wanting communion with your child forever, wanting the best for them, trying to help them weed out these character traits that could keep them separate from God. There are also deeply troubling racial beliefs linked to their theology. This is arguably one of the most problematic parts about the 12 tribes. The 12 tribes teaches that slavery was a part of God's divine plan, that the people that were enslaved were meant to be servants as a form of redemption for themselves. And they completely oppose interracial marriage and teach that white people have a special role in God's restoration of the tribes. Are you kidding me? I don't know where... Well, actually, that's not true. I do know what verses... you can justify anything if you twist scripture. That's what they say, and it's totally true. And the 12 tribes does that. Obviously, that's completely appalling and so wrong for so many reasons, and just really hateful, horrendous part of their doctrine.
I gave my life to our master, Yeshua. Gave up my life, all my stuff, all my freedom, everything.
The next step in joining this cult is just don't be Jewish.
So Ben and Daniel.
Yeah.
Hey, are you all, don't take it personal, I'm asking you, I'm curious, are you all both Jewish?
No.
No, you are Jewish.
I'm German. Good answer, if you know what I mean. Basically, they just send us in with no training. I don't even think they knew our last names at this point.
No, they've never asked for our last names. It was freaking weird. They didn't know anything. They just thought I was Daniel the Surfer Virgin. That was it. And we didn't have to sign shit. They put me in the kitchen where I can't cook, and I'm making sandwiches with you, dude, with no training.
After working an 8-hour shift, I was finally allowed to sleep for 4 hours, where it was time to wake back up and do it all over again.
I want to marry somebody outside of my race. It's the most attractive girl in the entire world. She's living her life fully to God. However, the one condition is she is not white. Well, our father told Israel not to marry outside nations or give your daughters to them. That's just kind of the same with other cultures. Once cultures start getting mixed, it's like people don't know where they came from, actually. Really? Yeah, and then genetic-wise, a lot of bad genetics come from it, too. Really? Like what? Different diseases? Wait, you said different jaw sizes? Yeah.
But according to science, it says it's actually advantageous for mixed race children since they have a greater chance of being immune to certain diseases or illnesses. Yeah, being mixed is actually beneficial to not catching diseases. But they're just going to believe whatever they want to believe.
Yeah, like Lydia was a full Chinese and I'm fully white. We would have created a baby that's like half Chinese and half white. That would have been terrible. Yeah,
it's not something that they're always going to be willing to say openly. If you go to the Yellow Deli, they're not going to turn you away for not being white. But it is in their literature, and former members have repeatedly confirmed that this is the case. And in terms of power dynamics, it's very top down. The elders, which are, again, always men, they hold spiritual and practical authority. You don't question them and not receive immediate, swift, harsh consequences. Disagreeing with the elders, with men, with your spiritual leaders, is framed as rebellion against the one true God, the living God, which is how they maintain control. Through belief, structure, and the fear of spiritual failure, of going to hell, of not observing the rules that God has put forth for them. Okay, now you might be wondering, Lauren, how does a group like this that's running a deli, allegedly a Yellow Deli that's adorable, how does a group like this stay so hidden in plain sight? And that is where the Yellow Deli really does come in. These cafes are the lifeblood of the group. These cafes are run in cities throughout the entire world. They're known for being cozy, unique, and having handmade things throughout it. You'll see in the photos, it does look like a place you'd want to stay on a trip or go stop on the side of the road on a road trip. The food is allegedly decent, and the people are apparently friendly, and everything feels wholesome. People are typically surprised after they find out. They go to the cafe or the deli, and they'll then research it and be shocked to find out that it's, related to a cult, because it does feel so homey. The vibes are right, but they're not. But they're not just businesses, okay? They're recruitment tools. When you go into these cafes, everyone that works there is a member. You're not getting hired. You can't ask them for a job application. Nobody there gets paid. Even the kids work there. This is part of their service. They'll do food prep or cleaning, and it's considered part of their life of service, supporting the group and helping, put food on the table. The Yellow Delis are how they make money. It's their primary source of income. And they're also how they normalize the group within the community. They're able to gently introduce outsiders or people that are lonely, eating lunch alone, that, maybe this isn't so extreme. Maybe there's something more to this. Maybe, this feels like a sweet place. Maybe I should look more into this. And they're good at it. They're good at sucking you in. They wouldn't be a successful cult since the 70s if they weren't. They've crafted a very gentle public image, one that does not match child abuse or racism or any of the other horrific things that are going on within this cult. They've been investigated time and time and time again. Child labor violations, abuse allegations, cult accusations. Sometimes they've had to shut down operation temporarily, but that does not put a damper on them. No. There have been police raids in Germany. There's been a ton of court cases in the US and exposés from multiple countries on the 12 tribes and the Yellow Deli. But alas, they're still here. They're still fucking with us. That's partly because they know how to operate under the radar. They change names, they relocate to new communities, and they lean on the religious freedom laws to avoid regulation. They currently do still have communities in the US, Canada, Germany, France, Argentina, Australia, and other countries as well, but I can't remember off the top of my head. Their structure is pretty loose, which makes it harder to hold them accountable. It's like a federation of cells, which each answer to elders, and then all of those following the same teachings. But it's kind of hard to put your thumb on. The more that you look into it, the more you can understand why it would be hard to prosecute, which is upsetting because you want to free these women and these children, and, you know, the men too, but specifically the women and children, because they would have the hardest time exiting the group. Now, this is the part that really fascinates me, and it's where I try to come from a place of empathy, and I really encourage you guys as the watcher to try to empathize with them as well. Nobody joins groups like this because they want to be controlled. They join because they're looking for meaning in life, or safety, or healing, or clarity. And yeah, maybe they grew up in chaos. Maybe they were burned out by modern life. Maybe they just wanted a place where things felt simpler. But no matter what the reason is, it's not their fault that it ended up being a cult. And for a while, it probably did feel like peace to them, until the cost of belonging started to really show up and leave an impact on them. When everything is about submission, there's no room for questioning. And when your identity is wrapped up in a group, leaving doesn't just mean walking away. It means losing your home, your job, your family, your sense of self, everyone that you know. That's your entire access to the world. 12 Tribes is a hard group to talk about because on the surface, they look harmless. Warm bread, smiling people, earth tones, earthy vibes. But underneath, there's a system that controls behavior, suppresses individuality, and perpetuates harmful beliefs, all in the name of faith. If you've ever been through something like this, whether it's in this group, the 12 Tribes, or in some other cult somewhere else, I just want to say, it makes sense that it still affects you. It makes sense if parts of your cult programming is still hardwired into your brain. Healing is not linear, and it's going to take time to process it all and relearn a different way of living, a different lifestyle, a different way of viewing everything. That is how controlling these cults are. Thank you guys so much for taking the time to watch this, and like, subscribe, share, comment. If this resonated, or if you've ever had any sort of connection to groups like this, feel free to share your thoughts in the comments below. I would seriously love to hear about it. There's also a link in my description where you can fill it out and request to become a guest on this show. And if you'd be a good fit, I'll reach back out. So please fill that out if you're interested in sharing your story and warning others about experiences that you've been through. I'm always interested in hearing your lived experiences, so please, again, don't hesitate to reach out. If you guys are into gentle deep dives on religion, psychology, and spiritual deconstruction, I'd love it if you'd subscribe and help support my growth of this channel, but no pressure either way. I'll see you guys next time, and I hope you have a great week. Thanks.
If you're infiltrating these cults, aren't you worried at one point that maybe you'll believe them and become part of it?
No. When you're there, you do start to like believe it. That actually happened.
Dude, I started crying. He's so good at getting in character. He just felt so bad for his character about like some things that happened that he sent me this text and I started crying. I was literally crying. And I called Lydia. I was like, Lydia, did we just lose Ben? And then we're texting Ben. We're like, Ben, this isn't real. This is going for YouTube. This is YouTube, dude. I still have the text on my phone, but I was like literally bawling.